you were a kid who no one expected to go into music. You really didn't have any
Uh-huh.
formal musical training. I mean,
No,
how does it
not
happen?
at all. I like to write. I mean, in high school, I wrote
Poetry?
poetry and I wrote parodies of movies and had my family and friends. And we also made movies like Day After the Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
So I like to write nonsense stuff.
Were you the leader of the B-52’s, would you say?
Well, I probably helped spur us to start a group because I was living in Atlanta, and we were all friends from years before.
This is a whole crew of people who live in Atlanta.
Athens, Georgia.
Yeah, Athens, Georgia.
And I was visiting, and we went to a restaurant. We couldn't afford food, so we had drinks. And then
That's great.
we went to a friend's house, and he stayed upstairs and wrote letters. And we went downstairs, and he had a setup for a group, and we just came up with Killer Bees because Killer Bees had just arrived in Brazil.
But wait a second. So you start writing and stuff, and you meet these other people who sort of are creative, and they are into writing music and hanging out. And someone says, hey, let's start a band. And then you hear about the Killer Bees. So we say, we'll name ourselves B-52’s or something.
Well, no, Keith had we had just started jamming, and friends of mine were having a Valentine's Day party, and I said, "Oh, I'm in a band." They go, and I said, "Do you want us to play for it?" And they said, "Sure." So I went back to the others and I said, "Do y'all want to do a show?" And they said, "Sure." And then we realized we didn't have a name, so Keith came up with B-52’s.
Based on
the hairdo,
based on hairdos,
which looked like nose cones of jets and stuff.
So when you start to get famous, what was your first big hit? Was it
Rock Lobster.
Rock Lobster. All of a sudden, big hit.
It became like a really independent. It was our first independent single, and it did do well for an independent single with no promotion. And
John Lennon himself said he was inspired to start recording music again after he heard Rock Lobster.
Yes,
he was in a dance club and he heard it.
Yeah, he liked the beat and how crazy it was. And then when Cindy does that, wild vocal. That's definitely inspired by Yoko, and I think something registered. He said, "Yoko, it's time," and
They went ahead and did it.
Yeah.